Hey guys, it's Alex from DolfansNYC with What's Your Fantasy for Week 8. Now before we get to this week's recommendations, I definitely want to apologize for one of my calls last week.
It's hard for me to say I'm sorry.
Sean Hill definitely stunk it up for the Niners, and he was replaced by Alex Smith in the second half. But if you listen to my calls on some of the sleeper wide receivers, James Jones, Mike Wallace, and Sam Aiken all scored touchdowns for their teams and should be important parts of their offenses going forward. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's get to the players that you should play this week.
Put me in cold. I'm ready to play.
Now Matt Forte has been a huge disappointment to his owners this year, but he's playing against Cleveland, and they're giving up the third most points to opposing running backs. You definitely want to play him this week because he's going to be a star.
Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play.
Brian Westbrook is likely not playing this week, meaning LaShawn McCoy will get his second career start. The Giants are in the middle of the pack against the run, and he makes a strong number 2 running back. With Bernard Berrian still nursing a hamstring injury, Percy Harvin and Sidney Rice are even stronger plays this week as Brett Favre makes his first visit to Green Bay as a Viking. You know he'll be out for blood in this game, so play your Vikings receivers.
I'm so confused. I don't know what.
You know who's giving up more fantasy points to wide receivers than the Browns? The Cowboys. Seriously, make sure you're playing Nate Burleson this week. If you have a quarterback in a bye this week and are struggling to find a replacement, you could do worse than Mark Bolger. At least he won't get you negative points. I think. Here are the players that I think you should bench this week based on their matchups. The Broncos are giving up the fewest fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks, plus Joe Flacco hurt his ankle the other week. You may want to play it safe if you have better options. The Niners threw the ball a lot more last week in the second half when they were trying to catch up to the Texans. We'll probably see a lot more of that this week when they play the Colts, so you may want to bench Frank Gore. Steve Smith. Now I know I mentioned him last week, but I'm talking about the Giants one. Now Eli Manning's been throwing the ball around to Hakeem Nicks and Mario Manningham, plus Philly poses a very tough matchup. Despite not playing so well over the last few weeks, the Ravens are still very tough against the run. With Correll Buckhalter back for the Broncos, you may not want to play Knowshon Moreno this week. I've given you who to play, and I've given you who to bench. Now here are a few things to think about. You probably saw that Sean Green had a huge game for the Jets last week. Now he gets extra points for spelling his name S-H-O-N-N, but he definitely loses points for being a Jet. Either way, he's a strong player with Leon Washington out. Now if you listened last week, I told you to pick up Jamal Charles. After Larry Johnson's ban following Twittergate, Charles becomes Kansas City's #1 running back. They're on a bye this week, but he's an option next week. Beanie Wells had 14 carries to Tim Hightower's 4 last week for Arizona. He's definitely becoming a bigger part of the offense and should be owned. I hope I'm not butchering his name, but Danny Amendola of the Rams, that's right, 2 Rams recommendations this week, has caught at least 5 passes in 2 of the last 3 weeks, and if your league counts return yards, he's actually getting 10 to 15 points a week. As far as deeper sleepers go, no disrespect to my man Ted Ginn, but Brian Hartline had 3 catches for 94 yards last week, and he'll be a bigger part of the offense going forward. And he gets extra points because he's a Dolphin.
Because we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins #1.
Now we're almost at the end, but before we go, we've got a question over email. Alright. Dear Alex, I was fortunate enough to have an early draft pick. I used it to draft Matt Forte. He's bringing down my team big time and I'm getting pissed. I've been offered a trade. Matt Forte for Detroit's backup kicker and a 6-pack of Miller Lite. Do I take the trade or give Forte another chance? Sincerely, Sleepless in 6th place. That's a damn good deal. And if we were sponsored by Miller Lite, we would be getting a lot of money right now. That's it for this week. Remember, you can always check us out on DolfansNYC.com. This week, the Dolphins are playing the Jets at the Meadowlands, and we've got 30 people going. If you feel like tailgating with us, send us an email to DolfansNYC@gmail.com. And if you're in New York City, make sure to stop by 3rd and Long on 35th Street and 3rd Avenue for all of your Dolphins games. Until next week, I'm Alex with What's Your Fantasy?